minutes or so just for everyone to join up, and then we'll get started. I think we're about ready to get started now, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Good. Right. Scott, I think you're muted still. Sorry, guys, I'm just waiting on Scott just to confirm his mic's on and ready. That sounds promising. Good morning, Annika.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool.
Perfect. So I'll get started now. Firstly, thank you very much for your time today. I know that we were supposed to have this scheduled in for last week, but unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, we had to delay it just by 1 week. So the webinar today is going to cover the dangers COVID-19 poses on your cybersecurity. Just before we get started, my name is Seth Ayaz. I'm the marketing manager here at Digital X-Ray. I'm joined by Scott Goodwin, who is COO and co-founder of the business all the way back in 2015 or something. So just before I get started on the webinar, I've got a little bit of a short video on Digital X-Ray and who we are as a business. So that's a little bit about Digital X-Ray. Today's agenda is going to be, it's a fairly straightforward one today. Hopefully it won't take the whole 2 hours and leave us enough time for any Q&As at the end. I'm going to start off a little bit about talking about business, who Digital X-Ray are for anybody that doesn't know. We've also got some statistics on the impact of COVID-19 on cybersecurity. There's some frightening figures in there. Then Scott's going to move on to talk about how COVID-19's impacted us, Digital X-Ray, as a business, how you can protect your business, and we've got a demonstration on phishing, ransomware, and the Security Operations Centre. Towards the end, we're going to talk about best practices during COVID-19 and in general, followed by a quick Q&A if you've got any questions for Scott and myself. So today's objectives, we want you to gain knowledge about what's new in COVID-19, not new to cybersecurity per se, but new and pressing in COVID-19. We want you guys to have confidence in the efforts you're making for your cybersecurity and potentially what new things you're going to implement with confidence. Changing mindset. Now, everybody, including myself, we've had this since COVID-19, we've had this mindset of my health matters, the people close to me matter, how am I going to pay the bills, which are all valid and this should be priority. But what we're seeing more and more is that sometimes the cybersecurity aspect of your business almost doesn't get the attention it needs to, and it can lead you to becoming a victim, which will increase, in effect the stress on anyone. And ultimately, what we want you to do, what we want to help you with, is protecting your business. So, who are Digital X-Ray? So, Digital X-Ray are an award-winning cybersecurity specialist. We've got our core services, which include our SOC, penetration testing, our compliance services, Harpoon X phishing, and cyber essentials and packages. Now, we've been in the cybersecurity space for years now, and we are one of 8 businesses globally to have a CREST accredited security operations center, which is basically the highest level of accreditation you can get at Security Operations Center 2, which is something Scott and the team worked tirelessly to attain, and it was hard work and something we're very, very proud of. Our mission. I promise you this whole thing isn't going to be a sales pitch, by the way, so please don't think it will. Being part of a connected world shouldn't come at a cost. Digital X-Ray are driven and motivated to ensure that bad guys don't win. We break boundaries and explore the dark evolving world of cyber, identifying emerging threats that carry devastating consequences. By providing 24/7 industry-leading cybersecurity solutions, we never sleep so our customers can. So ultimately, the goal is to keep you guys safe, whether you're a customer of ours or a potential customer of ours. Our goal is never going to change. We work tirelessly to make sure our clients are protected. So how has COVID-19 impacted cybersecurity? Now, I'm sure all of you will have heard of the World Health Organization. They've been in the news an awful lot recently. They've been frontlining the efforts that many of the world's leading nations are doing in terms of combating COVID-19. So they've had a 500% increase in cyber attacks directed at them. Now, this clearly shows you the mindset of a hacker. They don't care whether a company is doing good things or bad things. All they care about is, right, if we infiltrate that business, can we make money out of it? If that's a yes, then you're a target. So it doesn't make a difference what you're doing. You're not going to be safe. Phishing domains. Now, there's been a spike in phishing domains registered over this COVID period, and around 16,000 new phishing domains are registered every 2 weeks. That's potentially 16,000 new threats to any business every 2 weeks. It's increased so much so that we've had to put efforts in place to protect our clients from phishing. Spear phishing, which follows on nicely. For anyone who doesn't know what spear phishing is targeted at an individual rather than a widespread campaign. So, for example, I work from home. People could target myself by identifying certain things you could find on the web freely available and cater something around to me to, in effect, they want me to buy it. Device usage. We're all guilty of this, but working from home has meant that we have, like, I have my own work laptop, but I also have a personal laptop. I have a personal mobile phone and a work phone. Now, my work devices are protected to the highest available cybersecurity solutions. My personal devices, although they are secure, they haven't got the same amount of protection as my work devices do. And it increases the threat to you, your business, when there's overlap between them, whether it's checking your work emails on your personal phone or checking your work emails on your personal laptop. If you fall phishing, that could potentially infiltrate your personal laptop and then move across to your work laptop, which is going to open up a world of problems. It's now not just a business that's fallen victim to a cyber attack. It's that individual's network. So what our team has found. So before I set up this webinar, while I was doing my research, I asked some of the technical team and some of the SOC team to get me some information about what they've seen during COVID-19. So systems aren't updated as often as they should be. Now, most of the time when an update comes out, it's normally a security patch because they found a vulnerability, they want to fix it. But they aren't being updated as often as they should be. It's even a struggle, even before COVID, this was still something that was picked up upon by our team. It's increased more so now because bringing in security patches across X amount of devices at the same time, while the web open up a world of problems, a world that might bring up more problems than it fixes. But we always recommend that those security patches are put in place as soon as possible, which currently they aren't being done. Working from home, assets not being secure. Now, I touched on this earlier. It's regardless of whether you are using a work laptop, a work mobile phone or not. If you're using a personal device to conduct work activities, then you are opening yourself up to more and more issues. Network connections from home being at risk. I don't know if there's anyone from potentially an accounts team here with us today, but anybody could be printing anything. It could be personally identifiable information. It could be credit card information. It could be sensitive business information. But if your personal network has already been breached, a hacker could potentially intercept that data. They could intercept whatever's going to your printer, make a copy of it, edit it, delete it, at will. So we must all be careful about the devices that are in use. As discussed, increase in phishing. Now, what we've done to combat the increase in phishing attacks is that we've launched a completely free phishing service. If anyone wants to know more about the phishing service, they can email myself or Scott at any time. But if you feel like your business has fallen victim to a cyber attack due to a phishing email, send us the email. Our team will run the analysis and we will report back to you completely free of charge, just so we can help you identify what's happened and what's gone wrong. Lack sense of awareness. Being at home, you're in a relaxed atmosphere. I know I am most of the time sat on the sofa working, but that relaxed atmosphere can lead to a lapsed sense of awareness. You might be more relaxed about the emails you receive. You may be lapsed about potentially some websites you visit. It all increases the threats to your business and the potential damage it could do to your business. So the threats to your business, we've discussed working from home, there's exposure to physical security, and there's delays to detection and response. So working from home, what you as individuals and your companies have to put in place are the policies and procedures. Now at Digital X-Ray, we were very fortunate that we had a number of staff members already having the ability to work from home, but that didn't mean all of the members worked from home. We had the procedures and the policies in place. Now, we are ISO 27001 certified, 9001 and ISO 20000 certified. Now, all of these compliance mandates still need to be compliant, even if we are working from home. And that means that are we taking care of our information security? Are we making sure the quality control is in place for any service we do, even if it's from home? I don't know how many of you guys are working from home, but these are still things you'll need to adhere to make sure you're still certified. Threats to consider. So phishing, we've already discussed, malware and ransomware. Now, ultimately, what happens is that a hacker will 9 out of 10 times send a phishing email hoping someone bites. If they bite, there's malware, potentially ransomware, hit towards the business. Zero trust. A zero trust policy should be in place for anybody that's working at home. Zero trust basically means if you don't know where it's from, don't go near it. It potentially could be important, but you need to verify the source of each email, of each correspondence, of each phone call, just to make sure that you're doing what you can as a business to protect your business and your devices. Now, in 2019, a quarter of all cybersecurity breaches were caused by employee errors. The stats from COVID-19 haven't come out yet. We won't have a good idea about it until obviously this pandemic ends. But if that was 25% before COVID-19, you can only imagine that number being drastically higher now we've all been working from home. Risks to physical security. So potentially a lack of physical security in the offices because of less employees being in the offices. Your internal network security is also a threat. Now, if you've got a disgruntled employee, whether he's unhappy about the way you've handled this pandemic and he wants to get his own back to the business, he's got a much easier chance now. Now a vast majority of people are working from home. the scary thing about internal threats is that you don't have to be a hacker with experience, and you don't have to be one of the techies on our team, the ethical hackers that know exactly what they're doing. You don't have to be that anymore. Anything you need to know is readily available online for free without doing much thinking. It's ultimately a copy and paste scenario that people can do, which is unbelievably scary for all businesses, but also means that things like that need to be monitored. And things like our security operations center, for example, will monitor that all day and all night, to prevent such instances from occurring. So delayed detection response. Now, here's a question for you to think about. If you all had a breach, how quickly do you think it'd be identified? I'm going to put a question out to everyone on the chat. Does anyone know what the global average for a breach to be found is? I'll give you about 30 seconds to type. 30 days? No. Andy Carter, 200 plus days. 7 days. So, Andy, you were the closest. 187 days just for a breach to be found. But then, so you found a breach. How long would it take for that breach to then be reported? That's an additional 27.5 days. So that's 200 days in total for a breach to be found and then reported. That's 6 months. I'd like you all to think about what a hacker could potentially do in 6 months without being stopped. He or she could copy all of your data, could amend all of your data, could potentially take credit card information of your clients, billing information of your clients. It's a frightening thought that someone could stay on a network for 200 days. Now, large businesses can potentially cope with this as long as they have the right infrastructure in place to be able to cope with something like this happening, backups, whatnot. Smaller businesses are at risk at that point. I don't know if you remember the Red Scar and Cleveland Council attack, ransomware attack at the start of this year in January. They had a ransomware attack. They were without the systems for I think 2-3 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks, they were all paper-based. Now think about that. We're in 2020. This whole council for this whole jurisdiction area is now writing things on paper. If it wasn't bad enough that you had a breach, now that paper, having a paper trail of everything, writing everything down, can open you up into a world of threats as well. So just those 200 days you're never going to get back. And that's why we always say get something in place before something like that happens, because you can then mitigate that risk. So I'm going to hand you over now to Scott, who's co-founder and COO of the business, who's going to talk to you a little bit more in depth about certain pieces of information I've just given you. Scott?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for attending the webinar this morning. Okay, so first of all, how has COVID impacted Digital X-Ray? Well, first of all, from my personal experience, I was worried straight away, how's this going to impact my family's health as the death toll increased and there was very little information. So it caused a lot of uncertainty. As there was very little news coming out, we just knew that there was a pandemic starting. And as a business owner then, I was worried about the future of the market, the current economy, our employees, their families, and would we be able to continue to do business? It was a very strange time. And it's one of the strangest periods, I'd say, in my lifetime, because I'd never thought I'd ever see the government actually pay people to stay at home. During the period, we were identified as key workers as we were protecting national critical infrastructure in a number of NHS trusts. So we had to keep working. There was no way we could just shut up shop and stop servicing our clients. So we had to move what we already had a working from home policy, like Seth touched on, but the 24/7 Security Operations Center was something that we never envisaged going fully remote. But because of the threat posed by the virus, then we thought we need to do that. We need to try and make it remote. We utilize cloud-based systems. We can do it. So we did just that. And I would take my hat off to the team. They've worked absolutely brilliantly through the period, through utilizing the technology that's available. I mean, if we went back 10 years, I don't think the technology that exists today was there or as good as it is now. And people have got, very fast broadband connections, and the tooling such as, Microsoft Teams, numerous meeting software has worked flawlessly for us. Some of the on-site testing we've had to move to doing this remotely as well, which is that's been a challenge, but we've managed to create solutions for that. So rather than send a person, we can send a remote box to do a pen test, etc. So we've overcome those challenges. Working from home during a major incident was something that we were particularly worried about. So obviously, if we're all in the office, we have a major incident for a customer that we're going to deal with, we go to the war room, we start whiteboarding, and we get all the heads together, and it works well like that. And I can say that during COVID, we have had a number of major incidents for our clients, and the collaboration and the team have been outstanding. It's been a little bit of an eye opener, as myself and my business partner talk a lot about working from home previously, and like I said, we never envisaged a 24/7 security operations center being able to be run like that. But I can say that we've done really well through this period, and we've kept servicing our clients with the best service and dealt with those incidents. It's been a challenge managing multiple teams remotely as well, but again, the technology is so good nowadays that it just allows for that collaboration. I would even say in some areas the team have collaborated better because they've had less distraction. I mean, you guys will know when you're in the office sometimes, particularly from sales staff, they'll come and ask lots of questions about things, and it can be a little bit off-putting if you're deep in thought, and the team have not had that, but everyone has been available all the time on Teams, so it's been really good in terms of how it's worked. And we've continued to deliver technical excellence and grow as a business, which is something that we thought our growth plans would be halted during this period, as we didn't really understand what would happen with our current customers and the economy, etc. But we've continued to grow. We're still on our growth curve, and we've continued to hire. That's been a very strange thing. Literally, hiring people that you've never actually met personally in the flesh. You've done all the interviews over VC, and then they've actually started with a business, and you've had to do the induction, send them kit, and all that. So yeah, I can say that I'm proud to say the team have continued to protect our clients, and we've also looked at ways that we could help companies or individuals struggling during this time. Like Seth touched on, we got our heads together and thought, right, what can we do to help? We provided the free phishing check service. We also offered some companies temporary coverage in our 24/7 operations center to keep them safe during this period. So yeah. So what are the risks to your business? So it's the usual suspects. Phishing attacks have been on the rise during this period. They were even mentioned during some of the government briefings. Cybersecurity was a hot topic. We actually did a lot of work with a medical facility based down in London that was hacked during COVID-19, which again demonstrates that the people that are orchestrating these attacks, they've got no morals. They're just looking at financial gain is their motivation, or in some instances recognition. They want to be seen as these people who can get into your network and expose what they say is potential holes, but then extort you in the meantime. So we worked with a large medical facility that was potentially going to be used for the research of the vaccine and maybe in the future. But not only that, they had a large amount of bed space that could have been available to to the capital, especially when they were looking at setting up temporary hospitals. And again, this just caused a lot of extra work, overhead, and stress for those guys. So we would right at the beginning of the COVID-19, we were dealing heavily with sorting that out for those guys, looking at how we could put better protection in, utilizing our security operations center, rounds of pen testing, and helping those guys overcome the breach that they'd suffered. And we were working with the UK police, CIA, and a number of government agencies during that. So phishing attacks, again, you've got employees working at home now. So the thing is, you're working at home, you don't have your colleague next to you, you maybe don't have the resources available to you that normally you've got. So it's very important that employees have a clear view on what they need to do in the circumstances that they do get a suspicious email, because they can't look over the shoulder and go, have you had a look at this? What do you think of this? Do you think this is right or not? They're having to make those decisions sometimes in isolation. So there's been a big increase in phishing attacks. As well, I think some companies, we were fortunate that we already had a big home working policy, and we have a lot of remote workers already. But although we invoked our business continuity plan, it was fairly smooth transition for us. It was just spin up some laptops, install the policies. But I know some companies out there, they had to go to fully remote within the space of a week when they weren't geared up for this. I mean, I know in some large corporate businesses that I've worked previously, bringing a remote working project to life can be anything up to 6 months to a year in a large corporate enterprise, to pick a technology, ensure it's all working, make sure everyone's got access to everything. And these projects were done in the space of a week, which obviously could then mean that potentially corners have been cut, things have been overlooked. So there's a risk there that things have not, potential cybersecurity risks have not been covered. There's also the potential of internal attacks. So unfortunately, due to the impact of COVID-19, we're seeing that a lot of employers are now making people redundant, especially the leisure and tourism industry has been potentially, very badly hit. So this could lead to disgruntled employees. I know my neighbour, she's been laid off, and she's very upset. Not that I think she'd do anything, but again, she's really upset. She's worked for this company for 12 years. She's very indoctrinated in their systems and procedures and policies, and she could, easily tell someone something that they shouldn't know, or become potentially be a threat to the organisation. So we've got to ensure that we've got robust policies in place for that. And of course, the ongoing threat of external attacks. So if you were to sit on your broadband router, you would see that you are being scanned every second by malicious IP addresses looking for open ports, looking for low-hanging fruit to try and infiltrate your network, or anything that flags as looking interesting for someone to do some further reconnaissance on. So why would you be a target? So this is something that we get asked a lot. So this was when we first started the company, and we went out to try and sell our wares. This was a common objection. Well, why would someone target me? I don't do anything to anyone. I'm an ethical business. I'm a good employer. I sell a great product. Why would I be a target? So just like what we just said there, these guys don't care what your circumstance is. They're generally just looking for low-hanging fruit. So they're looking for you to take that sort of attitude, really, and sort of be a little bit blasé about your security. Maybe think, oh yeah, okay, I got this guy doing my website. He's a great guy. He's doing a fantastic job, and not do any sort of risk assessment against it, or look into it. So again, these people are just casting a net. They're just looking, they're using automated scripts, or, in some instances, they will target particular businesses, but most of the time it's automated scripts looking for open doors, essentially. And again, we've got companies during COVID-19 who could become a target. So we know that, PPE suppliers, they've had a big boom and rise in supplies. So we know that they're making money. Supermarkets are still very profitable. So they could be a target, especially when the attackers know that they're probably in a little bit of a state as they're seeing exceptional foot flow, or they're seeing elevated numbers in deliveries, and they know that where the companies are challenged by this, the actual working scenario that we've got now, which is different to what most of us have ever worked like before. So you've got all these measures in for keeping people safe, and then we've got, on the other hand, we've got companies that have actually descaled, so they've had to lay staff off, which could mean that they've let go of key resources, especially if you look at a smaller company where people have mixed roles potentially. So it could be that the guy, one of the guys in the office, he's the go-to guy when you feel that he knows a lot about fishing or something. He's not there anymore, and the staff expertise has gone. So the lack of resource is a real risk. And then we've got the common one, like I said, if you're taking the stance of, well, no one's going to target me, I'm a great guy, then you're going to have a lack of security measures. You only know what you know. If you're not finding out where your risks are, if you're not checking that your door's locked, so to speak, then someone else is going to check it for you, and if it's open, they'll come in. So how do you protect your business? So there's a number of things that you can do to protect yourself from a cybersecurity threat. Many of them are very simple to do. So like Seth touched on, make sure that everything's up to date. I know in some large organizations this can be a challenge, as you've got change release cycles and you're worried about potentially software that may not function. But when it comes to a actual security release, or a security update, you have to be at least be attempting to update that system. And if you don't update that system, you must have some sort of mitigation, or it identified on a risk register that you know what to do in the event that is actually infiltrated. And now regular testing would actually highlight this. It would highlight vulnerabilities. It would highlight open doors. It would highlight errors in code. It would highlight the risks. So it's essentially someone acting as though they are one of these malicious actors and attempting to infiltrate your systems, but they're going to give you a great report and a great outcome, basically an external risk assessment to say, these are the gaps, this is what you need to do about them, and then you can either accept the risk or you can mitigate that risk. And again, the key one, especially when people are in isolation or working from home, is that employee training. We've got to make sure that our employees know what the processes and procedures are. And more to the point, they know what to look for, and not just for the business, but for themselves as well. There's so many of these phishing attacks and smishing attacks and all the rest of it knocking around at the minute, especially with things like HMRC, tax rebate, all the usual things, and then people jumping on the back of the COVID-19. So utilizing furlough as a script to try and get you to reply to some phishing email or log into your government gateway. So we need to make our employees aware that these things are a problem and what to do. So it's okay telling them, right, this is a phishing email, but what do they do then? It's not, you've got to make sure that they feel empowered, that they can go to someone, report it, and that it's going to be followed through, and that they're not then going to look, they don't feel like they're going to feel stupid by highlighting an email that maybe isn't a phishing email, but it's good that they asked the question. So again, robust processes would feed into that, incident response plans, business continuity plans, like what we've seen enacted during this period. And of course, then if you want to use a managed security provider like ourselves, we can monitor that network. We can monitor all those endpoints. We can monitor the working from home population. And then if anything does arise, then you're mitigating that 200 days, because we're going to see that an anomaly's happened. We're going to act on that anomaly. And never so more has it been important that you contain a threat quickly. Mean time to detection is one thing, and then it's what we do after that as well when we do find a potential breach. And let's be honest, there's no silver bullet to stop you becoming a victim of cybersecurity. You know, if someone really wants to breach your security, they will. And then it all boils down to what those processes, those procedures, and that incident response and your mean time to detection is. So it's very important that you know what to do in that situation, and that's really where our team of professionals come into their own. Is they are used to dealing with these situations. So, like I touched on at the beginning of COVID, we was helping a medical research facility. We were there helping them, guiding them through the process of mitigating the threat, but not only that as well, helping them with the reporting back to the regulatory bodies and ensuring that they've locked all the doors and made sure that the threat is no longer there, and then they've got a concise view of everything that went on that timeline, that journey that from breach to mitigation. So as we've said, it's the usual suspects. Phishing and ransomware has been the thing that has been the big target during COVID-19. Because if you phish someone, it's a direct route into or for placing some malicious or enacting, getting someone to do something they wouldn't normally do. So again, what is phishing? So there's various different phishing types. So basically, what the guys are trying to do, or the bad guys, they're trying to get you to do something that you think is benign, but it actually leads to an action that gives them something of worth. So something they can either utilize to further compromise you, such as credentials, or they might actually phish you and then look to get you to pay some invoice or look like someone else. Or there's a number of ways that phishing can be used to deliver malicious payloads, such as ransomware. But generally, it's the more common one is that they want you to go somewhere and log into something, which would then give them those credentials. So other terms like Seth touched on, spear phishing. So this would be, normally phishing is a wide net thing. So they'll send a phishing email out to thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and hope that someone sees that email, clicks it, and does whatever the desired response is that the attacker wants you to do. When you look for a spearfish, you will look at a particular individual or group of people. So you might try and infiltrate them by utilizing something they're interested in. So let's say you're interested in Formula One, they'll potentially put something in there about Formula One, or get Formula One tickets, or something to entice you and make it more attractive, and really get you in there. And then phishing. So phishing is when you receive a phone call. Now there was a spate of this, especially towards the elderly. Now my mother-in-law was targeted by this, and again they try and force panic. So that's what they try and do with phishing emails. Really, they say, "Oh, we're going to cut you off if you don't do this," or "We're you know this is really important that you do that." So they phoned her up. They told her that something was going on with the computer, which really was a bit crazy, but anyway, she hardly uses it, and that she needed to go to a computer. So because she's trusting, and they told her name and all these sort of things, so they gave her a little bit of snippet of information they already had about her. Then she went to a computer, and although she actually knew as soon as she'd put the phone down what had happened, during the phone call, she'd managed to give them her driving license details and all sorts of things that she shouldn't have done, because they'd instilled this panic in her, and it's a technology she doesn't know about. So that's the way that they this phishing works. Is someone will ring you, they'll try and invoke a reaction through panic generally, and gain more information. Smishing. So this is receiving an SMS. So again, there was a spike in this through COVID. We saw a lot of SMSs around furlough schemes, register for your tax credits, and all this sorts of thing through smishing, using government narrative to try and again get you either to reply and cost you money, or click through to something that would then be malicious and try and install something, or try and get you to log into a government gateway of some description. So whaling is very similar to spear phishing, only this is, we're going to target someone very high profile, someone of worth, potentially a celebrity, and try and gain access to their details so we can utilize that for our financial gain. So here's a couple of examples. Sorry, it's a little bit unclear actually, but here's a couple of examples of a phishing email. So like I said, suspicious login attempt, action required. Again, we're trying to force an action. We're trying to make it seem that you need to act on this very quickly. This is a very important email, and I need to do something with it. And as well, we've got a sign of trust in there because we've got my user ID. Yes, that's my user ID. Okay, let's click through and let's deal with this. I don't want locking out of my emails. I'm trying to work remotely. I don't even have an on-site administrator to speak to now. I'm isolated. So again, trying to invoke a response. And then on the right, we've got again an example of something that you might be interested in. So sign up for the free tech talk and then give away my CompTIA details. So again, these emails look very legitimate. They're no longer the prince trying to get some money out of his bank or anything like that with bad misspells. They're very well constructed emails that really, on the whole, will look legitimate. So here we see we've got another example of one hit in the mailbox. It didn't get picked up by any spam filter or anything like that. And again, it's got that narrative. It's got that warning. If you don't change your password before this date, you're going to get locked out. Click here now. You need to do this fast. And Trollmush trying to get you to do something without thinking. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to invoke panic and get you to act. And then this is a rough example of a login, but this could be an Office 365 login account, for instance. So if you've not got two-factor authentication on your Office 365, you need to get it on there. Because what the attackers have done in the past, we've seen they'll get you to change your password, but then what they'll do is they'll capture your old password, get the new one, and they'll actually change the password for you with Microsoft. So once you've done this, you'll think, oh, well, I've changed my password. That was legit. You'll go log into your Office 365 with your new password. All works fine. But unfortunately, you've been the victim of a man-in-the-middle attack, and these people have got your credentials. So how do we protect against phishing? So again, I can't stress enough, it's user awareness training is the big key here. But not only that, test that the user awareness training is working. So run your own internal phishing campaigns. Make sure you've got a benchmark to work from. So do your first campaign right. Okay, who clicked? How many clicked? What was the percentages? And then deliver some more training and see if you're actually, you're actually improving that security awareness piece. Because never more has it been so important when people are actually remote. They don't potentially have colleagues to lean on or to converse with like they would do in an office environment. So we really need to push that home, make sure that awareness piece is there, and do regular testing of that the awareness is working, because it shouldn't be a tick box exercise. As part of ISO, etc., you've got to do security awareness training, but it's not around just clicking the box to say we've done it. We want to make sure it's actually working. So ensure that you're testing that with a phishing campaign. Utilize third-party software for email filtering. There's a number of email filtering software out there. Definitely use one. This will stop well-known mailboxes from delivering you suspicious emails, and will stop by checking SPF records, etc. Stop low-hanging fruit. Again, stop the really obvious email phishing attempts coming through to your mailbox. A well-crafted email will bypass email filtering. We do that ourselves through our phishing and training that we do. But again, it's stopping that. It's stopping that volume of email that a user could potentially be receiving. And ensure you're keeping all your email applications up to date. Ensure the latest security updates have been implemented. Again, I know if you struggle with patching through your business because you've got a rigid patch release cycle, you should always put onus on delivering security updates as soon as they're available. So ransomware. So I'm sure we all know what ransomware is. So it's a type of malware that encrypts files and systems. So it will once it's detonated, it will go off, it will try and find files, or it'll encrypt your machine, and then it will say that you've got to pay someone, generally in a cryptocurrency, to gain access to that machine again. Now, when WannaCry hit, ransomware changed slightly. So ransomware used to, historically, it would infect one machine, that machine would be infected and you'd have to rebuild it. It was awkward and annoying, but it would just be that machine. So when WannaCry was launched, it was launched with one of the CIA breach known vulnerabilities called Eternal Blue. And that allowed the ransomware to spread from machine to machine. So it was a new breed of ransomware. It was more viral than just a piece of ransomware software. And this caused, obviously, we know the NHS a real big problem because they had a lot of legacy systems that were vulnerable to Eternal Blue, and it spread like wildfire through their systems and some of their testing machines, because obviously the testing equipment is very expensive and in some cases run Windows XP and very old versions of software. So it's very disruptive, is ransomware. It's not that you can't recover from it. If you've got a solid backup and business continuity plan, then you can recover, but it is time consuming and it not something that anyone wants to be dealing with. I know one customer of ours a couple of years ago were hit by ransomware, and unfortunately they didn't realize their backup wasn't working and they lost a year's worth of data to ransomware, which was quite critical to them, as you can imagine. And again, cyber criminals are indiscriminate, so they'll target anyone. They don't care. They don't care how big you are, how small you are. They'll just cast their net and they'll start to try and hook you in, try and extort you for cash. So why is ransomware so effective? So the estimated cost of ransomware attacks in 2019 was £8.6 billion. So like I said, with the NHS, with high examples of high cost ransomware attacks where multiple machines were infected, and the cost to rectify that was astronomical. And then the surprising fact is that 59% of ransomware attacks were due to exposed RDP connections. So not all directly through phishing. They were through maybe using a phishing email, because as we see, 90% of all cyber attacks involve some sort of phishing email. So that could be that we phished a user, we've got some compromised credentials, and now we're going to look for something that might allow us to log into a device on their network, generally utilizing RDP. Around 26% of attacks were directly caused. So that's the direct impact of a phishing email. Someone's installing a piece of ransomware directly from a phishing link, which is a lot rarer nowadays, I'll be honest, because people generally don't have the administrative access, or they have the multiple click boxes before it will deploy a ransomware direct to the machine, or they'll have some sort of antivirus product. And although people used to hate Microsoft Windows Defender, we have found that it is a very effective solution nowadays. The ATP protection in Windows Defender is extremely good. So it would pick up a lot of the ransomware attacks that you see now. So generally, they would utilize that phishing email to get a further attack vector from the potential victim. 13 to 15% attacks were effective due to missing patches. Again, known vulnerabilities. So this is an easy one, guys. We can keep our systems up to date if we've got a good, robust patching policy. And 98% could have been prevented by implementing simple known security steps. And simple known security steps are things that are covered in the likes of Cyber Essentials. So the Cyber Essentials was launched by the government to help small businesses cover off low-hanging fruit again. So, make sure the systems are up to date, make sure you're using complex passwords, make sure you're using two-factor authentication where available, and ensure that you've got a robust Windows build, you're not utilizing auto run and things like that. So as we said, RDP was a high rate of infection for ransomware. So I'm sure some of you know what RDP is, but I'll just briefly go through it. So RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. So it's a protocol that Microsoft developed for system administration of Windows servers and machines. It utilizes port 3389 And it allows you to log into a machine if you've got the relevant credentials, as if you were sat at that machine and or do various things. It's generally used by system administrators for internal maintenance of systems and servers. So I'll show you an example of logging in from one of our penetration testing Linux builds. So what we'll show is here, we'll show us scanning the network and just how quickly that comes back. So we're going to look for a potential victim. So we're looking for open ports using Nmap. We found 4 hosts. We got all sorts of information there. We know the OS, got the usual NetBIOS ports, but there we go. We've got Microsoft Terminal Services, or RDP, running on 3389 TCP. So we take that IP address. We use a little program called our desktop on the Linux build. And away we go. We're logging in as though we're at the machine. So if we've managed to compromise a user, or we've looked in, potentially looked at some of the password dumps that we see a lot of on the dark web, we've got older one of these lists, we've got some credentials. We all know that a lot of people will reuse the same credentials across multiple systems, and then we can start trying to infiltrate a machine utilizing some of those compromised credentials, or some credentials that we've harvested through a potential phishing email. And as we see, we've got a very important document there, aptly named for us just to have a look at and steal. So there are vulnerabilities in RDP. So again, we shouldn't have RDP open to the internet. It's a bit crazy, really. To have 3389. It's done a lot in error, or when people have trouble getting access. But again, during COVID-19, we've got people working from home and they may not have VPN facilities available. So system administrators have potentially opened this up to their own IPs, or a range of IPs, and they don't have a static IP. They're on a broadband connection, which could potentially open this up to hackers. So again, if we look at some of the latest RDP vulnerabilities, we've got Bluekeep allows an attacker to execute code on a vulnerable system without the need for authentication. So this would allow an attacker to actually start executing programs without even authenticating to the system at all. So they'd literally use 3389, and then they would try and execute some commands. So they would look on there, see what privilege level they had, and then they would try and potentially download some code to allow them to get further access, or harvest some credentials, or do a priv-esc, so privilege escalation attack, try and escalate their user account to that of an admin, or host a number of hacking tools so then they can do further analysis of the box. CV 2020-0660, this allows you to do distributed denial of service attacks. So again, we can knock the RDP box out. This could be a critical server. So if we've got a critical server on the internet, because we need to administer it from home now, or remotely, because we're no longer in the office, but now it's open to potentially being DOSed, or subject to a denial of service, which would essentially render the server useless. And then again, we got another one, which is a 2021 again. So it's this year. This allows an attacker to perform a remote code execution without the need for authenticate. So again, an attacker would look for that particular CVE, and if they were to identify it, they could utilize that to position code, position a backdoor into a system, try and get some user credentials, try and get some, and then use privilege escalation techniques to get a foothold on that machine. So if we've identified RDP as a big risk for a ransomware, then turn off RDP, use VPN only when you're accessing your systems via remote desktop. It's just not worth the risk. Or if you are going to open it temporarily through change control. So you open it up to say you to manage it from home, from your IP while you've got that IP, and then you shut that down. So make sure that you're just not leaving it open on the internet. It's such an easy way into the network, especially when you look at what a server, a Windows server generally has access to other servers. So it can be really used as a huge pivot point into a network. Patching, can't stress this enough. I mean, I know we've banged this drum a lot during this presentation, but you really need to keep things up to date. We see so many customers where they're not updating systems as frequently as they need to, and it's just low hanging fruit. There are lots of automated scripts out there that are running to pick these things up, and you will fall foul at some point if you don't keep that up to date. And again, sometimes patching does cause issues. So make sure you've got some test environment and you've got a process, you've got a structure around rolling out patching to make sure it's done. It's no good just saying, oh, well, we'll wait till the update settles anymore, which was a historic thing when, back when I was a consultant, people was like, oh, I don't want to roll out the new update. We'll wait till everyone else has done it first. Update cycles are a lot better nowadays. You generally don't get a whole lot of issues, especially when it comes to security updates. Major releases, of course, big service packs, etc. You want to test them out, but incremental updates are generally, especially when it comes to OS, very, very stable nowadays. Have an effective mitigation in place. So again, make sure that you're doing those regular backups. Don't be like one of our customers and think that your backup's working and then find that it's not for a whole year. And make sure you test it. Do a restore. We do a restore monthly on our backups just to make sure that the functionality is there and it's working correctly. And again, that also gives evidence towards your ISO 27001 and other compliances. So we execute our backup strategy on a monthly basis. Do a quick restore, make sure it's working. I suggest you do the same. Also, make sure you've got your business continuity plans in place so that if you are affected by ransomware, make sure it's on that risk register. You've got a plan, you've got an incident response plan, you've got some sort of disaster recovery procedure in place to cope with it. And then monitor your network and logs. You only know what you know. Again, like an external risk assessment, it will highlight gaps. If you're monitoring your network and you're monitoring your logs, you're going to be alerted quicker. And even if you're not alerted, you're going to have some forensic details and some logs and a footprint of what happened previously, so that you know where the attack came from and what you need to do in the future to stop that. Again, you could utilize a third party like ourselves to add that layer of security testing or add that layer of protection or that network monitoring utilizing our security operations center, so that you have got someone on your side, in your corner, should these things arise. This is a little demo of our one of our analysts' view. So this would be the Alien Vault platform which we use. So we would see some account manipulation on this machine, and this could be a machine at home, it could be anywhere on-prem, doesn't matter. And then they're difficult to read. I'm sorry that the quality is pretty poor, but we got a number of things that we can do with that asset. So one of them could be that we want to shut it down. We've seen that it's been affected or it's been manipulated by malware or ransomware. So we shut it down, get it off the network, and contain the threat. And again, that's all about this mean time to detection and then how quickly you can respond. So you've got a user at home and you don't have any security monitoring in place, so you don't know this has happened. They get a phishing email, they accidentally execute a payload or they do something with that, and then they sit on it. And how long do they sit on it for? A minute, 2 minutes? In that time of you lost data, in that time of as someone positioned a rootkit, have they positioned another way in, a back door? It's really important that you can react quickly and effectively shut these threats down. So again, we'll cover these key notes. So how do you protect your business? It's regular testing. Make sure that you're testing your business continuity planning, you're testing your external perimeter for vulnerabilities, you're performing pen testing, not just as a tick box exercise, but as an exercise to actually get some value from that and implement a risk mitigation strategy. Employee training. you can't stress enough. People are now at home. I know some people are returning to work, but generally, people are still working at home. Make sure that even though they're in isolation, they know what to do in the event of an incident, and they know how to spot one. Not everyone will be able to spot it, but if they've got an inkling and they know who to ask and they're not afraid to ask, then generally they'll ask someone before they click, or they do. And then more importantly as well, if they do something, that they know who to tell and they don't feel scared and sit on it. They know that it's just like, these things happen, please get in contact immediately, let us know so that we can mitigate and contain the threat as soon as possible. Processes. So again, those processes wrap around that employee training piece. Make sure that you have an incident response plan. Make sure you have a business continuity plan. Make sure that you are doing effective risk management and you log in the risks to your business. And not only that, you're actually looking at how you could mitigate them if they were to happen. Manage security. If you don't have the in-house skills, or you're just starting out on your security roadmap and maturity to having a robust framework, then engage someone like ourselves who are experts in the field, who can help you along and provide that service straight out the box. So best practices. Zero trust policy. So as Seth touched on earlier, make sure that users only have access to what they need access to. Like I said, with COVID-19, we had a big rush to home working, which meant that people were, in some cases, doing this for the first time, and getting laptops, getting them ready for the home environment. Make sure that the users have not ended up with access to systems or got installed programs or things on their laptops that they shouldn't have. Revisit it, have a look, make sure that we've got that zero trust policy in place. You only need access to what you need access to perform your job, nothing else. I know that a couple of companies I've spoke to, they were struggling with, because employees were now at home and they'd rushed the laptops out. They didn't have access to certain programs that should have been installed, and then they were giving them temporary admin rights so that they could install things themselves. So again, make sure that there's a process around that if you do things like that, then you take them rights away straight after the installs happened. Or better still, get one of your engineers to remote in and do that for the users. Education. So again, can't stress this enough. Make sure that security awareness training is done, and not as a tick box exercise. Test that the education is working. Test that we've got a baseline and that actual risk element to the business is improving, because it is a risk element. Your employees are a risk, a cybersecurity risk. It's not there. It's no one's fault. It's a fact. So make sure that you're actually managing that risk by regular testing of the user population to make sure that the awareness training is actually working. Otherwise, you're doing it and you're blind again until something does happen. And constantly review those working from home methods. I know working from home is a struggle for some organizations when it comes to PCI and things like that, especially if you've got potentially people taking a payment or involved in a payment structure. You can no longer inflict a tidy desk policy on someone that isn't in your office. So work through those, work through educating the employees and documenting all that, what those working practices need to be. Again, procedures. Make sure everyone knows what the procedures are and that they exist. So we have an incident response procedure. We know what to do in the event of an incident. We know who to call, and we know how to act. So effectively manage the data. So ensure you know what data you hold. I mean, this is one for the GDPR. Make sure that you understand what data you've got, where it is, what categorization it is. So ensure you've got a labeling policy in place where you know how to treat that data, and as well that the employees know how to treat that data. So if your HR department are dealing with PII, make sure that they understand that that's of a sensitive nature and that it shouldn't be written down on a piece of paper or potentially even printed out at home. Printing things at home is a real threat. There's no confidentiality bins at home. So how do we dispose of potentially sensitive data when we're in the home environment? Again, you need to educate people on this. That's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And then you do a risk assessment around it. So what would happen if? Is this a risk to our business, etc.? And then you're monitoring your security. So ensure that you're monitoring all your devices as best as you can with the technology that's available so that you can act upon a breach or a situation as it occurs. Devices. Now, Seth touched on this. So ensure that if you're going to allow employees to utilize personal devices, that they understand that there is a policy in place around them and that they have to be pin locked. If you can't utilize technology, then you have to use robust policy and procedures, or better still, just don't allow it. If they've got laptops for home and they've got work mobiles, then that's where the business data should stay. It shouldn't be accessed on personal devices unless absolutely necessary. I know it's convenient and everything else, but really it depends on how your risk appetite is, because like Seth said, if you access data or you're downloading documents, say, to your phone, and that's not actually secured with a PIN, you lose it. You could potentially be losing a Word document that contains sensitive data or PII. And as well, how do we then run effective data management if our data is dispersed across numerous devices that we don't even know exist? So that's me, guys. I hope you found that useful. So if you've got any questions.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, please pop them into the chat function. You can get in touch with any of us as well after the webinar. A recorded version of the webinar is going to go out. Hopefully, I think you'll receive it tomorrow. Just a few questions for you guys if you want to answer is, what threats are you most concerned about during the COVID-19 period? Have you made any changes to protect your business? And do you have a plan on how your company would react to cybersecurity incident? Now, I don't want you to be forced to put it into the chat function, but we're more than happy to have a chat with you away from the webinar. I will be sending over a short survey just to ask you how the webinar went, how it can be improved, what did you think of the topics, and who do you want to hear from in terms of presenters today? I'm the marketing guy. Scott is the co-founder. Next webinar, it could be one of the penetration testers or one of the SOC guys. Let us know what you think. Tracy, what risks should be considered with VPN access? I'll leave that to you, Scott.
So Tracy, again, make sure that when you're setting this VPN access up, I know some people have rushed to roll this out, but make sure that the cryptography schemes that you're using are robust and fit for purpose. So don't use legacy triple DES or anything like that. And more importantly, make sure that there's some sort of two-factor authentication on there, so that there isn't the case of getting hold of a password and then you've got access to the network. The other thing is, with the VPN access, ideally you want to look at a solution that will allow some sort of security on the actual host laptop as well, because like we said, if you're connecting from a home network, you don't want to allow that network to connect to the VPN and then someone use it as a transit if they're on the same LAN and they can access that device to get into the internal business. So again, make sure that we've got some sort of firewall on the end machine that blocks that, or that it's intrinsic in the VPN software itself. I know that Cisco, for instance, blocks all incoming connections if you use the full tunneling solution.
Does that answer your question, Tracy? We can get one of the guys to give you a call if you've got any other queries as well after the webinar. Any more questions for us, guys? No? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate your time. And again, we're sorry that it had to be rearranged. It was out of our control at the time. But yeah, you should all be receiving over a short survey and a recording of this webinar if you wish to watch it again. So take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys. If you could fill that survey in, it'd be really helpful for us, because we obviously want to make the content as relevant as possible.
We want to run more of these. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.